who else is there?
Did I put one in the manager group text? I don't know if I did.
I wasn't looking at that phone.
I rarely look at that one anymore. I guess Ted doesn't look at it for months and months, though.
I know, that was pretty funny, right?
Ted just popped up and he was like, hey, I've been reading text from like 2 months ago. How are you guys doing?
Wait a second. I feel like I forgot about something. Oh, yeah, I had a job.
I wonder how those people are doing. That's why I love Ted, though.
Oh, Ted. Sweet Ted.
All right, well, let me see if I can share my screen because I made another PowerPoint. Well, this is actually a recording of a screen, which is lovely. So you guys will really like this, I'm sure. Here we go. All right, I'm just gonna play it. So this is the actual background and philosophy thing that he wrote. And I went through a lot of trouble to go to stars.library.ufc. Took me a long time to find this thing. But there you go. That's the actual document if you ever want to read it. It's day 100. Apparently we hope. And we read chapter 9, They Left Me Behind and Went Home. It starts regarding the Florida Project, or Walt Disney World as we all call it. And talking about the very earliest planning and construction phases. The big yellow planning X is such a cool visual while filming from the helicopter on an empty lot that would become Disney World. It now regularly holds around 300,000 people, but at the time it was just a big empty field and swamp. Orlando initially had 7 flights per day into the airport and now has 846 flights a day during the non-COVID times. Lots of vestiges of the old Southern segregation were still ever present around the property, including whites-only bathrooms in some of the restaurants. The early site even had a poacher's shack, which is not really something you could find outside of the Pirates of the Caribbean these days. The utilidors and dry land, for that matter, were only possible because they dug the Seven Seas Lagoon and used the dirt from digging that up to build up the rest of the dry land and make it a little higher, which I thought was pretty neat. The quote I liked here was, there will never be another Disneyland. And I think that is very true. There's not another park like ours. It was the first and it's the only one stepped in and lived in by Walt himself. And this should and is such a source of pride for all of us to this day. I just want you guys to touch on why we think our park or job is so special. For me, it's a unique ability that we have to have a positive impact on the cast members and the guests every day. In other jobs I've had, that's not been the case. You don't always have an ability to have a positive impact every day like we do. And I think that's really cool. Let's see what else we talked about. Once completed, there were no thrill rides because everything was designed for an older population, although the demographics ended up being the same as Disneyland, so they had to quickly fix that problem with Space Mountain and some other rides such as that. Marty has his window, which I thought was very nice. This is also something I thought would be impactful for us right now. Concerns over the 10,000 only attendance on the first soft opening day were alleviated when by the end of the first year, the park was now the most visited in the world with 10.7 million visitors. The early October opening was very purposely done as a soft opening, which is what I'm sure we're also going to do with our park when we reopen it. And so even if we only have 10,000 people, we need to keep in mind in no time at all with a vaccine and a little bit of time, we'll be back up to our millions and millions of visitors, for better or worse. And that's all I have. Let's see. I can stop sharing that. That's the document. It's pretty cool. We don't need to see it all, though, do we? Go back over here to you guys. This way you can all see each other's pretty faces. Judy, I have you up first.
All right. So obviously this whole chapter was mainly about Walt Disney World and everything that happened. It's interesting how even after Walt had passed, they feared that they didn't have his his innovative forward thinking, but a lot of what they did and the problems they resolved were still forward thinking, just like he was, like when they thought about the waterways and, having a river, like, okay, architects like straight shoot it, like, and one of the Imagineers are like, how about we make it look like a real river? Maybe, maybe that'll work, and just having all those ideas. And then I think the proudest one was, convincing, RCA to be a sponsor by designing Space Mountain, and how it's interesting how something so magnanimous was the thing that had them reminded them that they still had Walt's vision and his, mission, which is constantly being innovative and forward thinking. When they had been doing that the entire time they were building Walt Disney World. I got emotional when they started talking about the dedication windows and how that's something Roy wanted to continue. I forgot who mentioned it, like, how about we make, we dedicate these windows, and give them fake names so we won't hurt people's feelings. And Roy's like, no, this was Walt's tradition, and that's something we're going to continue. And the fact that we still continue it today, like, it's very special, and it still ties us to, Walt Disney and his legacy. So that was my favorite part. And when I read his, I got even more emotional, because I remember when we did the Christmas window tour, that was one of the ones that we talked about. And that's when I remember when he said, like, oh yeah, my office was in the police station. It's like, oh my God, I know exactly where that office is, because that's the window I pointed out to the cast members during Christmas. So, like, it was a really good chapter, and just hearing how much they didn't say it, but, in that chapter, it was like they feared losing Walt's memory and Walt's vision, and they wanted that to stay even when they didn't mean to honor his memory, they were still doing so, and everything they were doing to make Walt Disney World work. So that was like the big takeaway that I got from the chapter.
Was the RCA the one where they had the meeting where the guy like instantly
always sat at the head of the table and asked who these people were?
Yeah. Which, boy, who are these people? That's a great way to deal with anybody.
That was like a good motivator, but a good humbling experience as well.
Yeah. Let's see. I have Jenna. You want to go next?
Sure. Going off of what Judy was saying, the quote that I really liked out of this particular chapter is when it was the joke that they said, does Walt walk on water? And he walked away and then came back and was like, well, I tried that. And I'm like, but does he walk on water? That was pretty funny. That's how much they idolized him. I really do think they actually questioned it. So I really appreciated that. And something that I just never, there's a lot of history I've read on Disneyland working there that I wanted to know what was around me. So I've read some other books solely about Disneyland, and I didn't even realize what lack of information I had about Disney World until I was reading this chapter. So I really enjoyed like seeing how the other park was built and what happened over there, especially since it was after Walt Disney wasn't around. But something I didn't realize, I've been to Disney World however many times. My grandfather's sister, so great aunt, I don't know, she worked for the company for like 40 years in Disney World. So I've been to Disney World literally more times than I can count, because she would sign us in when we were kids. And not once did I ever realize that the lakes are there because they were draining the swamp. It's like, duh. That was obviously like done on purpose of how many lakes are in Disney World, and I never so I just enjoyed like reading about how the entire park came to be. And I also really liked when they said that they were draining the lake. They found the sand at the bottom, because there is that like super pure sand in the resorts, and I had no idea that was actually natural to the area. So I just really enjoyed reading it. Patrick, to answer your question of why I think our job is so special is because I think so many companies, it's so easy to focus on the negative, and I really feel like Disney's one of the few who tries really hard to focus on the positive, like our whole motto of, we create happiness. Like, oil companies don't create happiness. Like, there's a lot of places that don't create happiness, but the fact that that's what our whole purpose is and what our job is, yeah, obviously we're there to make money, like it's a business. But when it comes down to the fact that that's really what we're trying to put back into the world is something that's happy, I think is very rare and unique.
That's very cool. I didn't know the lake was there for that reason either. If it makes you feel a little better. I thought they just wanted like a cool way to boat people into like Epcot. So I was like, that's all it is. They just wanted a cool.
Yeah,
The stand is from the bottom of the lake. Like, really?
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I didn't know either. Jesse.
Right, so I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of some of the signs that I think will be important when we reopen. So the welcome home, we learned, you kind of bring your hands in and then home. And then I love you, because I feel like a lot of people will be doing that if they're deaf, because they're just excited to be back. And that's like a way people say goodbye or hi. And then bathroom or restroom, I think that'll be an important one. And then today I wanted to do fireworks. So it's kind of like the magic one that we did yesterday, except you start with closed fists and you cross them and then go out. So it's kind of like an explosion. So fireworks, because unfortunately, as we know, fireworks may not be happening won't be happening probably when we go back. So firework is today's. So for me, I just love this book because there's so much that you don't know, and it feels really personal. He tells stories about getting to know Walt and Roy and kind of hearing more about Roy, because the focus is always on Walt. So even that little bit more that we learn about Roy, I thought that was really cool. And from that, I loved how he was talking about the definition of genius, which I never thought to look it up. You think, oh, like a super smart person with a super high IQ. But in the dictionary, it's the guardian spirit of an institution, a person who strongly influences, for good or ill, the character, conduct, or destiny of a person, place, or thing. And honestly, we could all be geniuses, which is so empowering, I think, because all of us care so much about the company, and that's why we're there. And we are trying to be guardians of the spirit of the company. And that's kind of off of what we're talking about, how special the company is that we do typically have people who are more passionate to work there, because you could work anywhere. But if you choose to work at Disneyland, most of the time you're passionate about the brand or the park or Walt or something. Sparks that reason to be there. So I really liked that definition of genius, because I had never really heard it that way. So I thought that was pretty cool. And as I was reading, I was remembering the tour of all of the windows, and that was such a cool experience to go around and just learn a little bit of the history. And I think that's why I love this book so much, is you learn so much that you don't know, like creating a lake, or that sand was at the bottom of the lake, which is just also crazy. And for me, the reason that I think this company is so special is the ability to do lots of different things. As I've said before, I'm kind of a dabbler is what my mom calls it. I like to pick up lots of random hobbies and learn new things, and I like doing different things all the time. So I think having an office job where I sit there and do the same thing every day would drive me nuts. So it's cool with the company, even like a manager or a CEO, the higher up you get, there's still more that you can do. Even from the bottom, every day is going to be different. You're going to have different guests, you're going to have different experiences. There might be new products. You might see a different character walking by or hear a different story. So every day that you're there is a different experience and a different day, and you have the ability to learn so much and do so much. And I think that's why it's super special.
Yeah, that's very cool. I like that. I like dabbler. That's a nice.
That's what my mom.
Yeah, I did anybody else heard it defined like that? Because I never heard it defined like that either.
Dabbler? Oh, yeah, that's what
No, I'm sorry, genius. Yeah.
Oh, genius. Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard it, and I love that definition, because, like you said, all of this in some way probably. So, Lauren, your turn.
Yes.
Also, let us know what makes your job special.
What makes my job special? Okay, well, I'll start with kind of my recap of the chapter. I think it was super interesting and fascinating, especially after watching Imagineering's story, and I just feel like it takes it like a whole nother level. Like hearing about the problem solving with, everyone has said it about the lake, because no one knows that that's the real reason why there's a lake there. And the problem solving with the utilidors, I think that's so fascinating. And people always ask, oh, does Disneyland have the underground like tunnels and all that? And I can say like, yeah, we've got basements, but no, there's no underground network. But it's crazy to see how they utilize that to their advantage to create this magic up above that's literally on this this pedestal made out of like sand and dirt and all that. And I just didn't know that. I thought it was so fascinating. I also thought it was interesting that in the chapter they had talked about like brand consistency. And to me, I'm like super nerdy about marketing stuff and all that. And they said a key to maintaining the Disney standard is consistency around the world. Well, that goes for both coasts as well, from our original park to the Florida one. And I just thought it was just super fascinating to kind of read up on how Walt Disney World came to be, like from the designing of the castle to like all the little stuff all the way to soft opening. And then what makes my job special, I mean, Jenna said it, I mean, that's what I think too, is we create happiness. And that's one of my favorite things to tell other people. They're like, oh, you work at Disney, like, oh, what do you do there? And like, what do you like about your job? Oh, I like literally get to create happiness, not only for my guests, but I also get to have fun myself. I love coming to work. There hasn't been many days where I show up late to work because I'm just so excited to be there. You can't say that in other jobs. And I think what's really important is and what's special about us is that we are creating these memories that people get to hold on to a lifetime, whether it's their first visit or their 100th visit. Like they're always going to have these memories to share with like themselves or with their families or their friends, whoever they come with. And I think that we just help create happy memories for people. We in a sense make their life better, and it's like, and just, I don't know, I make it more exciting for them, give them a real purpose to being there and to escape like the tragedies of our real world.
I think it's interesting. We've all been away from the park for 100 days now, and we all need some of our own happiness, obviously. So going back will be some of that for us, but it's going to be just as important for our guests too, huh, guys? Like to really make every one of those guests for the next 365 days at least be a really special guest, because they're all going to be coming back from the horrible situations we've had going on in the world. And yeah, that's why I think this book made a lot of sense to me right now. Just talking about the soft opening, and we're going to be doing that soon, and talking about how, you have to cater your message sometime. They had the rides wrong and things like that. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of it wrong, but I'm excited about it. I really am.
I feel like that's, oh, sorry, not to cut in again. I think you bring up a really good awesome. Patrick, you were talking about how all the things that our Imagineers do, and how we're gonna have to do soft openings again. Well, I think that's really interesting, because I think all of us cast members, no matter what we do, we bring an important part to the story. Like, I don't have the same job as someone in Imagineering, but all of our roles are just as critical to help the show go on and to make sure that all of our guests are having this magical experience, whether it's on both coasts or even just in like one of our stores. I think it's just going to be super critical for us to always just remain positive, no matter how tough these next couple months are going to be. It's gonna be quite interesting to see how everything plays out, but we do have a critical role in making sure that everyone has a good time, whether it's our cast or our guests.
Yeah, I think about those, that first week is going to be so crazy different than anything. It's like almost like when you read in a history book and they're like, and then they came back from the plague, and I was like, well, no, we're now, that's not the blurb that we're all living in.
There's one thing I forgot when you guys were mentioning the big person in that company. I forgot his name, who always sat at the head of the table. And then when they came back, when they came back, they asked him to move to the other spot, and no one had asked him that before. And I thought that was really powerful too. I forgot to mention that sometimes all you have to do is ask. You may think that person is knows way more, or they're so important and you can't ask them anything, and then you just ask and you're like, oh yeah, I can sit there, like no big deal. So it's important sometimes to just ask, because the worst that can happen is people say no.
Yeah, exactly.
And also how long it took them to like put everything together, and then they were just like, who are these people? And I was like, I've been there. I've done that. What about you, Jenna? Have you ever had a project that you were doing where you spent a lot of time and you asked who you were by the end of it?
They asked who I was at the end of the project. The pin events, where I've ran them completely now twice, and still I have to remind, like, the only person who actually knows this is Jeanette. So she'll laugh about it, but everybody who runs the pin events will, like, I'll answer the question, they'll ask the question and I'll answer it. And then they turn to Jeanette. Jeanette's like, she knows, she did it. So it's one of those things where I do think, part of it, you just got to pay your dues, and eventually they figure out who you are. And everybody in retail's a different beast, because everybody in retail has so much experience. Like there's other lines of businesses. PhotoPass, the one I came from, was only 10 years old when I left it. So there's lines of businesses that just don't have that type of thing. So that is what I would say is unique. Told you, it was driving me nuts.
I just got so excited when I saw the black floof come around across the table.
They won't leave me alone. They're happy I'm here, but they're driving me crazy.
No, that's an interesting point though, because you have like the 60-year cast members who are like, well, we tried that, we're not doing that again, and we've all experienced that in some way. But
so I'm the girl without a name still, but one of these days I'll have one again.
Well, at least,
One day they'll see my name tag.
Yep.
I had a bad dream last night. It was I finally came back to work and I had left my earpiece at home. I thought I was going to get sent home, or that I was going to have to ask Tamara for another one. But then she was going to say no because germs. I'm so paranoid about coming back. In a good way. Want it to be perfect. It won't, but
Drew truly had faith in Disney that they know how to keep people safe. The virus was in California a full month before we even closed, and not a single person got it from Disneyland. So I really do have faith that they know what they're doing. They really do. So I really don't think anyone, everyone should be cautious, absolutely. But I think it will all go really well.
Well, I mean,
think so, too.
not like anywhere else. I mean, you get training for people passing out from heat exhaustion. You never have that at other jobs, at least the jobs I've had. But we're going to get like fully trained on how to wear masks and how to interact with guests, and that's what's cool about it. We're going to be prepared.
And yeah, we're going to have crabby guests about the mask, but we have crabby guests now.
Yeah.
Variety. This is just a new one.
I'm not worried at all, just because safety is our number one key. It's not like we're gonna toss that out the window and all that. I think it's gonna be good. I'm super excited. Reading these books though is helping pass the time.
Human nature is to constantly dwell on the negative. So
Yep.
I'm guilty of that, but just thinking,
We all are.
yes, we have wonderful guests, but you always remember that one terrible one. So
I'm so
100%
excited
of
though.
our
I think a
guests
lot of
are
people are
the-
going to be happy.
yeah.
I think a lot of them are going to be excited to be there. And
All I can think of when I think of Bibbidi now is that guest that tried to beat their mom with a bird. So I'm guilty of that too.
What?
That was Judy.
Oh my God.
Right before we left.
when
right?
was this?
March, February?
This was almost last year, almost a year ago.
No, it was recent.
I thought-
No, it was, I don't
I
remember.
thought it was like
Such a-
February.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't remember. I always get the guest complaints when I'm freaking hungry, so I don't want to deal with it. I'm hangry. Let's end this. I'm not giving you anything for free. So what's the solution?
Oh, man.
But yeah, like, control your 2-year-olds. Okay, terrible twos. You should know terrible twos. And it's not my fault that
Okay.
your child managed to pry a freaking wooden bird off a freaking bench.
Oh, I do remember that.
I don't remember this.
I thought you meant a real bird, Patrick.
Good job.
That's so much better than
Got one flying. Grabbed it to the lake.
I wish it had been now.
Make the story into a real bird.
It'll evolve into that.
Rumors start.
It's amazing what guests can do. I mean, one of our little, it's like the torches in Holiday. I guess they weren't glued in when the store first opened, so someone straight up stole it. Like they
Yep.
just took it and left. Oh.
And right there, just when you think you've seen everything, there's always something new. So,
Hey, I'm only a year in and I don't have a crazy story like that yet, so I'll just keep
No.
my eyes peeled.
do knock on wood. I had a lead tell me, I was lead training, and as he was training, he was telling me, like, I've been here for years, I've seen it all. And I'm like, don't say that. And that was the day, literally, as I was training him, we had a fluke storm, and I knocked over a tree in Carsland, and my photo was all over Twitter because I was calling security.
Oh my god.
I told him he jinxed it.
Probably. It's gonna be the first day I come back.
One of my last days of training with Natalie, we had this kid who wanted something like that in Spanish on a bracelet. And I was the lead and she was training me. So I went and dealt with it and I was like, no. And then he went to City Hall and with his mom and was like, they're like being racist and they don't want to do it because it's Mexican or Spanish or whatever. And we're Mexican. And I was like, no, it just was a bad word. And we looked it up and they're like, no, it was a racist thing. So they made us write it. And Natalie got talked to by the managers. I was like, oh my God. All we were trying to do is just follow the policy, you know, but it's like,
Yeah.
like my last day of training. So I was like, this is going well. This is going great.
Oh,
Like, this
no.
is nice. This is fine.
And you do have a crazy story, don't give me that. In the first year of you working here, a pandemic happened and we shut down the park. for
Exactly,
months.
yeah.
True. While I was learning my first Hatter shift, while it was pouring.
Yeah, that's
So years from now, this
got
is
me
your
there.
crazy story.
It's a 100-day plus crazy story.
I mean, we just posted a lead list literally right before we left. Like the day we left, we posted a lead list. So I'm really hoping, like, we're gonna have to remind everybody who made lead and then like make sure they all get their training.
I don't remember my job, so I hope somebody can remind me what it is.
I didn't
I'm
even
like,
have
I can do the job, but I just might need a little refresher. Just
I
like,
got signed off.
give me a running list.
I need training.
I was 2 days away from getting signed off. So managers, just letting you know, I can do it. I promise. I promise.
We're gonna have to have like 4 leads per shift just to remind each other about what.
It's just a team effort.
We closed the store somehow.
Well, I mean, extra bodies can't hurt to help, you know, people remember the new rules.
Mhm.
Yeah, except that they're gonna tell us we can only have 2 people, you know, at a time or something. So it's
Exactly.
funny.
The
So,
company's like, I will give you 1 cast member for your entire area.
you guys remember like
Them wisely.
yeah. Like in those little movies where they replace their hat. Like, hold on.
I have 1 cast member.
Or the
Guys,
guys
it's like riding a bike, it'll all come back. You'll be a little wobbly at first. You're like, I know one of these keys are it.
Oh God, the keys.
Judy, I don't know if you remember, but you almost because I had my safe key hooked to my my skirt as I was leaving, and I almost didn't put it back, and you were like, just bring it back when we come back, like in 2 weeks, like just bring it back. I was like, no, I'm gonna forget it, and now it's been 100+ days. I think about that. You're like, it happens to everyone. Just bring it back when we come back.
Yeah, pretty much.
I keep thinking about the
Back in simplicity.
conversation in the land, the night we closed, in the land, the president at the time, because apparently we go through them every 3 weeks, Rebecca was walking through the land. And so she introduced herself to everybody. She came up to us and she goes, I don't know why the guests are all sad. She goes, it's bugging me that the guests are all sad. And I said, well, because tonight, isn't really, like, I think it's more of a goodbye. This is going to last a while. She goes, no, for sure. Only 2 weeks. I swear. We are not going to close any longer than that. And I keep having that, like, replay in my mind.
Oh, Rebecca. Oh, Rebecca.
She's in like merchandise now, so that's fine.
I don't even know what she does anymore. I don't even know who our new president is. I think I've gotten one email from him, but other than that, I haven't heard anything.
Dave something?
No, it's,
Sure.
I know his name, but I'm like, my Chicago accent's going to butcher it. It's Pat Rack.
Yeah, that's his last name. Yeah.
Something like that. I have no idea. You could
I
you
don't
could give me a name and I'd
Not
probably
fair to put
believe
so
you.
many O's in one last name for me.